If there's one piece of advice that I could give to new parents, it would be that I think dads need to be doing overnights with the baby just like mom is. And I don't care if mom is breastfeeding, I don't care if dad's gone back to work. I think it is so important for dads to be doing overnights with the baby from the get go. Not only will this allow them to kind of unlock some caregiving and bonding with that baby, it will also help create a more equitable partnership. Because what typically happens is mom's taking maternity leave, hopefully it's paid, and dad tends to go back to work right away. And mom will say, I'll do the overnights, I'm breastfeeding anyways, and he has work in the morning, and I don't want him to be tired for work. But what that does is it leaves mom incredibly sleep deprived, but also it creates this dynamic where dad has basically kind of turned off his accountability to the baby. Like a lot of men will say, I don't even hear the baby crying. Like I don't hear them. Just wake me up, just tell me and I'll help. But it's so interesting because the baby could literally be right next to them in the bassinet and they don't hear the baby. And it's because they know they're not ultimately responsible for giving care to that baby overnight. And so what mom will do while she's on leave is she'll wake up with the baby. Now she's bonding with that baby. She's learned that baby's cues. She knows how to soothe that baby. But then mom goes back to work because most women in our country work. And she goes back to work and dad still doesn't wake up because he no longer hears the baby because for the last 6 to 8 weeks, he hasn't had to get up for the baby. So not only does he not hear the baby, right? When he does get up with the baby, he'll say, the baby doesn't want me. The baby wants you. I'm not good at this. The baby doesn't want me. They need you to do it. And that's only because mom has spent all that time doing it. And so it creates this dynamic where mom is doing the bulk of the caregiving overnight and it doesn't go away when she starts work, which is so interesting because we prioritized his sleep so that way he could go to work. But when she goes back to work, it has now been her responsibility to do overnights and now go to work. And she doesn't get to hand that back off because dad is now not really clued into the baby. He's maybe not bonded to the baby in the same way. He doesn't know how to take care of the baby overnight. And so it creates this dynamic that can really create some resentment. And it's really frustrating when you're the person responsible for the child to have your partner look at you and say, well, just wake me up. Well, me waking you up is actually a lot of work. I have to wake you up, and sometimes you don't wake up, and sometimes I really have to shake you, and now the baby's screaming, and we all know that the baby's screaming, the longer they scream, the longer it's going to take for them to go back to sleep, so you have to be quick, and so it's easier for me just to take care of that baby. And so if you're a new dad or a new mom, I highly recommend figuring out a shift that works for you guys. With my husband and I, one of us would take like the midnight feeding, the other would take like the middle of the night 2-3 a.m. feeding, and then he would typically take the early morning feeding because he would leave for work at 6 a.m. And so we would switch, and that's just how it worked for us. And it was great because it not only allowed my husband to have that time with our baby, it allowed me to also get some rest. And also that whole biological thing of like men just don't hear their babies. Men, like research shows that men do change hormonally when they become fathers, and that the more time they spend caregiving, the more that they kind of like unlock the abilities in their brain to provide care. So it is possible. I think we do a disservice to men and dads when we don't invite them into that experience and when we let them opt out so early on.